What's something a Christian can do that a non-Christian cannot do? Non-Christians can donate to charities, they can give to the homeless, they can volunteer when there's a natural disaster. So what can Christians really do that non-Christians cannot? The answer is love God. And non-Christians may snicker at that like it's not anything special, but what they don't realize is that a genuine love for God is the only path to genuine love. Without first loving God, you cannot love your brother, your neighbor, and your enemy. Without first loving God, you cannot love selflessly. Without first loving God, you cannot forgive selflessly. We are known as disciples of Christ by the love that we have for one another. And it is only by loving God that we can love without condition and without expectation. This is because loving God separates the selfish from the selfless. And it is only this selfless love that enables us to truly forgive others by grace. We must love God with all of our heart, mind, and soul. And we love Him because He first loved us without condition and without exception. And we are called to walk in love just as Christ also loved us and gave Himself up for us. This love is the cornerstone of everything. Everything. Every single thing in God's Word is breathed in love. So if you don't yet know God's love, then your eyes are veiled to the light and the glory of Christ, and the Word will seem foolish. And let me tell you, this veil is more real than you might realize. I read the Bible insincerely for nearly 2 years before being saved, and none of it made any sense to me. It felt like I was reading a word jumble. And then I'd very quickly get tired and set the book down. But once I willed for God to come into my life, I felt that in my heart. And I wanted Him to be Lord of my life. Once I surrendered my broken self to God in utter weakness, the Word made sense. Every single verse was life-giving. The veil was gone, and many other Christians I've talked to had the exact same experience. This is why God doesn't expect you to be clean or have your life together or have studied the Bible and memorized verses before surrendering your life to Him. He knows there's a veil that can only be removed when you stop giving Satan power over your life. Now, if we find that we don't love God as deeply as we'd like, it's because we don't understand our need for forgiveness as deeply as we would like. The more that you understand how much God has forgiven you, the more that God's mercy bleeds into our heart. Our sin held Jesus on the cross until He was dead. The sin nature that you and I possess is what crucified the Son of God, because it's that sin that rejected Him. It's that sin He has to reconcile, and it's that sin that's overcome through His resurrection. It would have been perfectly reasonable for God to wipe the earth clean the moment that we laid hands on Jesus, but He said no. Over 70,000 angels in heaven waiting to rain fire and brimstone over all of humanity to save Christ from our torture, our execution, and He said no. Christ's love for us brought Him to the cross, and He loved us while the nails pierced His hands and His feet. And even when He hung there and the life faded from His eyes, it's out of His love for us that He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." How many of us can truly say, "I love Him. I love Him who took on all of the agony, the shame, the separation from God, and paid for my eternity in the lake of fire that I deserved. I love Him who cleansed me. I love Him who saved me. I love Him who left the 99 for the one, who left the 99 to find me lost in the wilderness. I love Him who wills in me a life worth living. I love Him who first loved me." How many of us can say that?